We are up to reason 9 to not vote Democrat in 2022. I am Mark Stewart Greenstein. I've given 8 prior reasons. I think any one of them sufficient. Number 9, well, I'll begin, and it could end right here. Democrats want to make our cities sanctuaries for illegal immigrants who do violent crime elsewhere. Okay? We could be done right there. It is so irrational and so hurtful to members of those cities. Most of these same cities are run by Democrat majorities. Most of them have Democrats elected to their general assemblies and elected to Congress. And so their own people are the ones who suffer the most by having known criminals imported and not allowed to be removed. It's perverse that Democrats say they're looking out for the weak. Not with this kind of policy. I'm sorry. Now, let's say why they have this narrative that supports this perversity. Because their narrative is that the white-dominated society has an inherently racist animus against blacks. So, sending people of color to face justice is something that rankles. Having people of color in a proportion to the crimes that they've committed, no more, no less, but to them is unjust. When more blacks than they would like are imprisoned justly after being duly convicted by a jury of their peers, this upsets white elite liberals. Disproportionate result. That's the calling card of many PhDs who in the end are dopes. Or maybe they're worse than that. They know what's going on and they manipulate everybody else. At least they try to. They bring 14th Amendment lawsuits, their lawyers do, whenever they see a disparate impact to any sort of policy, meaning anything, and we'll take the criminal realm, a enforcement of a law or other restriction that puts a minority group more likely to be violating of that, even though it is not a law against minorities. A 5th grader can tell you that that result is unfair. And yet that's what the progressives bandy about for this ultimate thing about who their people are, and ultimately to get more votes at the expense of justice and here at the expense of crime. Democrats' stance on what criminality is very suspect. Okay? They make their own definitions and they often back it up with, well, it's based on somebody's background. And that is what's used to excuse crime and put people who are criminals and will be criminals again back on the streets to do more harm. We conservatives, we don't care that much about causes behind an individual's criminality. He, or occasionally she, has gone wrong and hurt other people. We care about punishing and deterring future crime. Democrats don't, and they use background to try to excuse it. And it becomes even lower level crime, and look who that hurts. Shoplifting. They want to excuse that too. Oh, don't prosecute for basic shoplifting. People need to eat. Well, needing to eat is different. Any one of us, conservatives, if you really are starving for food, go ahead, take food. Nobody is starving in America. Nobody can go without food if they want to find it. Their neighbor will give it. The organization, the church will give it. They're stealing televisions. And yet shoplifting is given a pass. No wonder there are what's known as food deserts. Lack of good grocery stores in many Northeast cities. It's because of shoplifting. That is the reason. A lot of people don't want to say it. But people in the neighborhood, if permitted to shoplift, and security has to stand down, police can't arrest, and certainly if they did arrest, they're not prosecuted, well, more and more items get stolen, and fewer groceries want to open up. That's why urban people are usually forced to go to the suburbs to buy their food. Democrats don't address what I call the 3 R's of crime. This is not reading, writing, arithmetic. It is restitution, recidivism, and rehabilitation. Restitution, it's easy. They don't do it, okay? Pay back your victim. You don't hear that from Democrat prosecutors. Recidivism, the return to crime, or maybe not, if things go well in prison for the convict. But it's Democrats who don't want to see perhaps the best type of way to avoid recidivism, the import of church officials or even volunteers who have a devotion to God and would like to help someone to Christ. In the process, that someone is going to help himself and help his society by being in a more Judeo-Christian mode. But Christianity is on the outs with most elite liberals. As for rehabilitation, well, that's something that Democrats give lip service to, but when it comes down to it, I see perverse policies. They, for example, would like to expunge the records for everybody of whether you've been jailed or not. That is way too blunt to help more than a few people. Because if nobody's criminal past can be exposed and some ex-con is now applying for a job, well, the employer knows if there's nothing productive on a resume for the last 8 years, good chance that that person has been locked up. So discrimination, rightful discrimination, says, I'm not going to take a chance. Proper discrimination, if the records were available, would allow an employer to parse. Hey, what was your offense? Maybe it was multiple offenses, but they were lower level. And maybe you did have a hard time getting a job in between and you felt compelled to sell drugs to just feed your family. Let employers see with individuality and with nimbleness so that those men coming out of prison have a better on-ramp to be rehabilitated. Back to, are there really too many blacks in prison? Well, there are too many bad schools. There are too many warped cultures that invade families that teach bad values, so that probably a higher proportion of young African Americans are more compelled to do crime than those of Asian and white background. Okay? Is that too many? The better question is, will that improve with going soft on crime? Not as well as having better schools and having better culture that, yes, might be from suburbia, welcoming urban people to get the hell out of a bad neighborhood, which in the Northeast anyway, it routinely happens, okay? I'm in Hartford. Go to Avon, go to West Hartford, go to Glastonbury. They are very white, but very welcoming of all races who want to succeed. And unless you think prosecutors and judges and juries are disproportionately racist, then we have approximately the right number of blacks in jail and whites in jail and Asians in jail. Unfortunately, and this is the most damning thing about the progressive mindset, some blacks are taught to think this way about modern America. And so they do come out with a disposition of, I can't get anywhere. The world is stacked against me. Justice is against me. Prosecutors are against me. The evil white guy is going to keep me down. And if he's then pulled over for some minor offense and resists, his life is in jeopardy because he's going up against armed people with the authority to use guns. Yes, that would be the police, not necessarily racist at all, but justified in many shootings because of resistance. Eric Garner would be alive today without that damned mentality. Tamir Rice would be alive today without that resist mentality. Live another day. The system is not inherently racist. We exculpate people who are innocent. We convict bad people who do cause murder, especially if it's a race-based murder. We have extra hate crime laws against that to protect blacks, especially so. And liberals ignore this. God damn them. I'm Mark Stewart. Thanks for listening here.